Welcome back in, everybody. It's the Kansas City Chiefs 2021. Once again, we are right in between that period between free agency and the draft. So we've gotten a pretty early look at what the Chiefs are really after free agent wise. They'll continue to sign more free agents here and there and let other people go as it suits them. But we've gotten a pretty good look at that already. We don't look into the draft yet. There's always a million directions that they can go. It's so important. You approach any draft and you're like, these are the guys we want. At each position, these are the positions we need. These are the guys we want. And the draft rolls around and 31 other teams are picking and you've got 8 choices. And by the time one of your 8 choices rolls around, all the guys you liked at the position you needed can be gone. And so you end up drafting the highest guy on the board at a position you don't necessarily even need. I have no problem with that at all. But we'll just keep that in mind at every position group we talk about heading up into the draft. And tight end is one of those positions. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Kansas City drafts a tight end. But once you get past Kyler Pitts at the top, there really aren't a lot of good tight ends in this year's draft. It's just not a deep draft for tight ends. So Kansas City, by the time their spot rolls around, even if they've got a couple of guys they like at tight end, those guys may not be available at the spots they're picking. So I'm not going to complain about or fuss about if Kansas City decides to not draft somebody at tight end this year, although I would like to see it. That's one of the positions I certainly would like to see it. What I really do like this year is if Kansas City would adopt a 2 tight end approach. I don't think they're going to do that in spite of the fact that they signed Blake Bell to a 1-year, $1 million deal. I just don't think they're going to do a whole lot of 2 tight end. And if they are, it's not really 2 tight end. And the reason for it is this. The price is right on Blake Bell. $1 million, that's basically veteran league minimum, right? Give or take $100,000. And he's a good, solid player. But what he really is a 6th offensive lineman. He's a good, hard-working player. He's been with Kansas City before. He knows the system. But on average, he's going to get about 7 catches a season. If you turn over to Pro Football Reference, and I love Pro Football Reference, it is a massive, massive database of all kinds of players and statistics. But if you go over there and you start looking at his career, and you see, man, he just doesn't catch a whole lot of passes, and probably never going to. Now that he's this deep into his career, he's probably just not ever going to catch a whole lot of passes. So, yes, technically, he's a tight end, and technically when he's on the field, it's going to be a 2 tight end setup. But this is not really the 2 tight end setup that I was referencing in the previous video. Now, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy may just not want to run a 2 tight end system, and I understand that. That's fine. They've got their own thing they want to run. But I do think there's an opportunity here in the NFL right now for any NFL team who wants to get 2 tight ends together and take advantage of something that's happening in the NFL right now. And that is the NFL defenses have expanded, kind of like the universe. They have expanded and expanded, and they're covering more ground than ever before. They're going sideline to sideline. They're even having to cover guys in the backfield sometimes who are so fast and just catching the ball on screens. Plus, they're having to go deeper and deeper than they've ever had to cover before. And in some cases, this is the interesting part, and the part that I don't like, some NFL defenses are actually covering more ground willingly, on purpose. In other words, they are so scared of getting beat deep for big touchdown plays and so afraid of it that they've actually started adding defensive backs and just kind of basically umbrella defense, keep everything in front of you. And in order to do that, they're just playing safeties deeper and deeper, or in some cases, just going to zone more and more. And because NFL defenses are expanding, that just opens up all kinds of seams and all kinds of basically dark areas, void areas in the defense for tight ends to take advantage of. And tight ends really are the perfect weapon to take advantage of just those kinds of things. The other thing that you have here that's going on with NFL defenses is that they're getting smaller and smaller, because so many defenses are either dropping out the extra linebacker or in some cases dropping out 2 linebackers and bringing in 2 defensive backs instead. Some teams like the Patriots are dropping down to 2 defensive linemen, and basically they're playing with 2 defensive tackles and some form of 9 linebackers or defensive backs, whatever you want to call Patriots defensive players. But it's not unusual. We see this all the time with the Chargers as well. We've seen lots and lots of teams whose defenses are getting smaller. Instead of investing draft picks or money into the linebacker spots, they are investing a lot of money and a lot of draft picks into defensive backs, just more and more defensive backs. So the result of that is Not only are NFL defenses getting more and more expansive, they are covering more and more ground, but they are also getting smaller, which gives you a second reason to go with a two tight end approach, because the tight ends tend to be 6'4", 6'5". They tend to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 260, 250, 270. And there's just a natural physical ability, even if the NFL defenses are well designed and the defensive back can get on them, there's just a pure size advantage there. And that's really a trend here that smart NFL teams can take advantage of. Now, I know the Indianapolis Colts are already doing that. Frank Reich enjoys the two tight end system. He's employed that. The Los Angeles Rams have employed that recently. The New England Patriots are going to go back to that. The Patriots had so much success with that 10 or 12 years ago when they had Hernandez and Gronkowski. And they're going back to that this year again. They got two tight ends in free agency. And smart NFL teams are willing to take advantage of an opportunity if it's there. And with the Chiefs already having Travis Kelce, I think the best tight end in football right now. I don't think there's a whole lot of argument about that. There may be one other guy out there you want to mix into that. But Travis Kelce, already you've got one half of that two tight end set. Why not just go ahead and add in another tight end here? And while I have no problem bringing in Blake Bell, I have no problem with that. The price is right. He's a hardworking guy. He will add to the team in terms of work ethic and in terms of blocking and everything else. He is really not the guy you're talking about if you're talking about a two tight end set, okay? He's just not going to catch the ball very much. He's already 30 years old. I think he's in his 7th or 8th NFL season. I don't think he's ever caught more than about 11 passes in a season, maybe more than that 1 year, maybe 15. I think 11 is really where he's capped out. And so I would really like to see, I would have liked to have seen, and some of this opportunity has kind of passed Kansas City by now, I would have liked to have seen that two tight end approach, but maybe Kansas City is just not interested in doing that. And if they're not, then that's fine. But that's really what Blake Bell is. He's a guy who, when you bring him in, it's going to help the offensive line be able to block better, and certainly it looks like the front office for Kansas City this year has a ton of attention that they've given to the offensive line, and really Blake Bell is really kind of an extension of that. He's decent at run blocking. He's a lot better at pass blocking, but he's a blocker primarily. When you bring Blake Bell in, that's really what you're doing here. You're really just going with a bigger set, more blocking, more ability to block. That's really what Blake Bell is, okay? So Blake Bell, 1 year, $1 million. I'm glad to see him back. The price is right there. No problem with that. That's really not what I mean when I'm talking about a two tight end set. Travis Kelce here, of course. Aren't you getting a great deal from Travis Kelce? I mean, before they restructured and his cap hit was going to be $12 million, you know, you're seeing quite a few tight ends make more than $12 million every season. You're seeing other guys who are making $10 million and they can't do half of what Travis Kelce can do. Travis Kelce is one of the best values in the entire NFL. By the time you take out all the rookie contracts, Travis Kelce might be the best value in all the NFL. He is an all-world, all-class, all-everything kind of a weapon. He's lining up for a shot at the Hall of Fame here. I mean, I just cannot say enough good, amazing, elite things about Travis Kelce, and you're getting him for basically $12 million a season. It's a fantastic deal. It is wonderful, and Kansas City benefits off of that. This is one of those things, you know, you say, well, why would Travis Kelce continue to play in Kansas City? Apparently he's happy. You know, he could very well go out to free agency, or he could play hardball with Kansas City, and he could very quickly get up to $15, $16, $17 million a season. If he were to really get out in free agency, say in the next offseason, if he were a couple of years younger, even now, I think, if he continues to be healthy, if he were to get out there when there's a lot of money floating around, like there should be next offseason, he could probably pass $20 million, even for a tight end. Okay, he's just that good. And yet he's here playing for Kansas City for $12 million. It's a fantastic deal. And this is the kind of thing that really helps the team continue to compete. It really is, even under the Patrick Mahomes contract. Now, who are these guys over here? All right, well, before the free agency season started, I was intending to lay out an entire tight end video of guys that I had targeted. This is some of the guys that I had targeted. I think 4 of the guys that I had on my list were never even really available. They were restricted free agents, and their teams went ahead and protected those guys before they could even get out on the market. These were 5 of the guys that I had in mind who I thought would be good backup tight ends. Now, Ben, why are you so stuck on that tight end thing? Well, but besides just the fact that a two-pronged tight end feature is a good thing for the NFL right now to be able to take advantage of, it's just an excellent opportunity here, and it will be for as long as NFL defenses are smaller and as long as they are covering more ground. It will continue to be a good thing for NFL teams to take advantage of. The other thing is, behind Kelce, you don't have anybody who can catch the doggone football, and you haven't for 2 off seasons, okay? So it would be nice as an insurance policy if Kelce goes down to have somebody back there who can catch the football more than 10 times a season, okay? And whether that's a rookie that they draft that they really think highly of, or whether that's one of these guys, it's be nice to have somebody back there. Now, you're still going to have to adjust. No matter who you get at backup tight end, they're not going to be able to do half the things that Travis Kelce can do, but you would at least like to not have to change the entire playbook if Kelce goes down. Yes, you can always switch gears and go into slot receivers and get a little more creative with your running backs and things like that. Absolutely. And Kansas City will do that at some point, I'm sure. But if Kelce goes down, you would like to at least be able to keep some of your plays in the playbook that involve the tight ends and involve somebody who's big and somebody who's physical. And the backup tight end, if he's cheap, would actually be a bit of an insurance policy for that. Okay, so these are the kinds of guys that we were looking at. These were not the top tight ends. I left all of those guys out. Kansas City really didn't have the money to be looking at those guys at all. The first guy at the top of the list is Trey Burton. Burton is actually still available. I think he just did turn 29, 30 years old. He has had an average of 30 catches a season over the past 5 seasons. Now, in reality, Burton is not a starting tight end. He's a backup, but he has done well in that role. At 30 catches a season, that is nothing to sneeze at. He could probably be picked up right now for somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million, $2 million, even if it was just on a 1-year deal. I'm sure that he'd be interested in a 2-year deal. At what dollar amount, I don't know. But I think Trey Burton could be picked up very cheaply right here, and you'd have a guy there who has averaged 30 catches a season over the past 5 years. And I think that would really fit well with Kansas City. Past him, Jacob Hollister already signed. I was very surprised that the Bills, I think, give me a second. Yeah, Jacob Hollister went to the Bills for 1 year, $1 million. Hollister's only 28 years old. He had 25 catches last season. He had 41 catches the year before. This, again, another backup tight end, but one that the Seahawks used very effectively in that role here, basically back and forth, half starter, half backup, that the Chiefs could use, or practically any NFL team could use. Behind him, Gerald Everett was really the guy that I have my eyes on here. My jaw just about hit the floor when I saw that Seattle signed Gerald Everett for 1 year and $6 million. I was like, well, darn. I don't know what NFL teams are looking at here. Gerald Everett was basically, if you looked at most places and if you study film, out of all the guys that were available in free agency, Gerald Everett was basically your 3rd best tight end available, and he signs for only 1 year and $6 million. And I don't know what agents are telling these guys. They might just be telling them to sign 1-year deals and then get better deals next offseason. That could very well be happening, but I would have at least liked to have seen an NFL team try to pick up Gerald Everett for 2 years and $10 million or 3 years and $15 million, a cap hit of $5 million to try to produce that 2 tight end approach. Gerald Everett would have been the guy. He just did turn 28, and he's had last season 41 catches, 37 catches the year before that, 33 catches the year before that. He's athletic. Not the best blocking tight end. Most of these guys aren't, okay? Most of these tight ends just aren't very good at blocking anymore. You almost have to pick which one you want. Do I want a blocking tight end or do I want a pass-catching tight end? Gerald Everett's a pass-catching tight end, and he's getting close to 40 catches a season over the past 3 years. So this really was a guy that would have fit well. I think Seattle's going to enjoy him for a season, and I think if he stays healthy, he should get a decent contract next offseason. Past him, Dan Arnold picked up a deal, I think, with, give me a second, Arizona. 2 years, $6 million. So that's basically $3 million a season. This, again, is another guy. He only had 31 catches last season, but for backup tight end, that's just about right. If you could have signed him for $3 million, 30 catches a season. You add that in with Travis Kelce, It's a heck of an approach. It's just really tough. You know, most NFL defenses, and I'm not going to leave this alone, so I apologize for hammering on it, but I'm not going to leave this alone. Most NFL defenses have trouble with one tight end because of the size. And when you start to kick in that second tight end, you have created not only physical matchup problems, but you're starting to dive into a talent pool there that just runs out. And what I mean by that, even if NFL defenses kick out that defensive back, that extra defensive back, because they're getting ready for you that week, and they're going to put in their linebacker and try to match up with you one-on-one physically, they're not going to be very good at doing that because that cornerback, that defensive back that they've drafted, that they put money into, he's probably going to be somewhere around the 12th or 14th best player on their defense. And when you drop him out, and you put in a linebacker who you really never intended to play much that season, you're probably talking about the 20th best player on your defense, which probably puts you at the 40th best player on your entire team. And so you've actually taken out the more talented defensive back in order to match up physically with that second tight end, and you have actually brought in a less talented player just in order to match up physically. So that opens up more doors, and what that also does is you force the defense to move. You have forced the defense to do something that they're not comfortable with, to do something that they don't normally do, to do something that is not within their normal game plan. And anytime you can get your opponent to adjust, you have achieved a small victory. You basically opened the door to more opportunities. And that's one reason why it's so important for teams to look at this two tight end approach as long as NFL defenses are getting smaller and covering more ground. And the last guy here is Tyler Eifert, probably a name a lot of you have heard, was drafted high, had a couple of really good seasons, then just kind of disappeared for a couple of seasons, but he's had two more solid seasons over the past couple of years. He's 31. He had 43 catches, I think, last year, and then 36 the year before. That might be inverted, but 43 and 36 the past two seasons. He's a big guy, productive guy. And again, the point is, these aren't starting tight ends, but they should be cheap. And you could probably get Tyler Eifert for the same price. Probably get him for 1 year, $1 million. It's just another tool in the box. You know, instead of having that third string tight end sitting out there who, even when he plays, isn't going to catch a darn thing, you're not going to throw the ball to him. Instead, you've got a guy there who could get some playing time, get some catches, create some matchup problems at different times throughout the season. And you may not even want to do that every single week, but it's just another tool there in the box. It's a bit of an insurance policy. It's taking advantage of NFL trends. It's something that Patriots have gone all in on, and I'm going to probably do a separate video just on them. It's just something that NFL teams should really take a look at. It's something I wish Kansas City would have taken a look at because they've already got half of that right there with Travis Kelce, already creating all kinds of matchup problems. With Kelce and Tyreek Hill, basically you're having to take 4 guys from NFL defenses to cover 2 guys. That leaves everybody else with one-on-one matchups. If one of those one-on-one matchups is a tight end who's just naturally bigger than anybody the defense has, it's going to create all kinds of matchup problems. Okay, so again, these guys aren't gangbusters. You're looking at guys whose yards per catch is 8 yards a catch, 10 yards a catch, something like that. But these guys could really eat up a lot of yardage for you as the season goes along, create a lot of matchup problems. Okay, I think I've covered everything there. We've talked about the guys that are still available, Burton and Eifert, and we talked about what they can do in the draft, and we talked about Bell and Kelce as well. All right, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.